This one waterway controls the global economy, and if it shuts down, everything changes. This is the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow stretch of water, barely 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, but responsible for nearly 20% of global oil supply flowing through it every single day. And right now, the world is watching it very closely. Because tensions are rising, oil markets are reacting, and global trade is under pressure. But here's what most people don't realize. This isn't just a shipping route, it's a pressure point in the entire global economic system. And if it's disrupted, even slightly, the consequences could be massive. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how this one location could trigger inflation, crash markets, and push the world toward a recession. So how does one narrow waterway hold so much power? How does a disruption here turn into rising prices, economic instability, and global financial stress? And more importantly, what happens if it actually closes? This is what nobody is talking about. The global economy looks strong on the surface, but underneath, it's incredibly fragile. And the Strait of Hormuz is one of its weakest points. To understand why, we need to start with one simple truth. The global economy runs on energy, and energy runs through the Strait of Hormuz. Every day, millions of barrels of oil flow through this narrow passage, connecting the Middle East to the rest of the world. Countries like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, UAE, Kuwait depend on this route to export oil. And countries like China, India, Europe depend on it to import energy. This is where it gets dangerous, because this system only works if the flow never stops. If even a small disruption happens, supply drops, prices rise, and markets react instantly. This is where everything starts to break, because oil is not just fuel, it's a systemic commodity, meaning it affects everything at once. Transportation, manufacturing, agriculture, energy production, everything depends on it. So when oil prices rise, everything becomes more expensive. Shipping costs increase, air travel becomes more expensive, factories pay more for energy, food prices rise, electricity bills increase, daily life becomes more expensive. This is how a disruption here turns into an inflation shock, and this is where it gets dangerous, because inflation forces central banks to act. To control inflation, they raise interest rates. Now pause for a second, because this is where the real chain reaction begins. Higher interest rates make borrowing more expensive. Businesses stop expanding. Consumers reduce spending. Economic growth slows down. This is how inflation turns into economic slowdown. But here's what most people don't see. The global economy is already under pressure. The world is sitting on over $300 trillion in debt. Let that sink in. $300 trillion. Governments owe it. Corporations depend on it. Households are exposed to it. Now imagine interest rates rising. At the same time, oil prices are increasing. Suddenly, debt becomes harder to manage. Countries struggle to repay loans. Companies face financial stress. Defaults begin to rise. This is where the system starts to crack, and this is where everything starts to collapse. Because financial markets don't wait. They react immediately. The moment uncertainty appears, investors move their money. Stocks fall, currencies weaken, bond markets react. And once that starts, it spreads quickly. This is especially dangerous for emerging markets because these economies depend on foreign investment, stable currencies, affordable energy. When oil prices spike and investors pull out, currencies collapse. Inflation rises even faster. Economic instability increases. This is how a regional disruption becomes a global crisis. But here's the twist. The biggest danger is not the actual disruption. It's the expectation of disruption. Markets react to fear, not just reality. If traders believe that the Strait of Hormuz could close, prices spike instantly. Even if nothing has happened yet, This is what makes this situation so fragile. Fear alone can move the global economy. Now think about that. A single waterway, a potential disruption, and suddenly, markets across the world begin to react. This is how interconnected the system is. Now imagine the worst-case scenario. The Strait of Hormuz is blocked. Oil supply drops significantly. Prices surge globally. Inflation spikes across major economies. Central banks are forced to keep interest rates high. Growth slows sharply. Debt becomes unsustainable. Markets panic. And just like that, a global recession begins. But here's something important. Not all countries will suffer equally. Energy-importing nations will be hit the hardest. Emerging economies will face the biggest risks because they have less room to absorb shocks. But even developed economies will feel the pressure because energy sits at the center of everything. This is what nobody is prepared for, a prolonged disruption. Because the longer it lasts, the worse the damage becomes. Supply chains break down, trade slows, confidence collapses. And once confidence is gone, recovery becomes much harder. But here's the bigger picture. This isn't just about the Strait of Hormuz. It's about how fragile the global economic system really is. It's about how one disruption can ripple across the world and change everything. But every crisis also creates opportunity. Markets reset, new opportunities emerge, wealth shifts. Those who understand these cycles position themselves early. Because while most people panic, a few people prepare. And that changes everything. The Strait of Hormuz is not just a location. It's a signal of how interconnected and fragile the global economy has become. The question is no longer if disruption is possible. The real question is, when it happens, how prepared will you be? If you want to understand the forces shaping the global economy, subscribe to Atlas Economics. Because the world is changing, and those who understand it will always stay ahead.